Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more 22 testing here. And it's been a little while since we've had a 22 out here and done a little bit of accuracy testing and stuff with it. And we've got a pretty interesting little load out here today. So for the load I've brought out here today are some of these guys, the CCI mini mags. Now this is a relatively older container of them that have been in the cabinet for probably 10 to 15 years at least. They don't have a date stamp anywhere on them or anything like that. But I know they're definitely a little bit on the older side because I don't think they use this bright orange container anymore. And this box doesn't even have the grain weight or velocity or anything like that on it either. I believe these are a 40 grain round. If they're not, I'll correct myself right here. And if I can find the posted velocity for the loads today, then for kind of the modern loads that are on the shelf right now, I'll put it up here as well. But either way, those should still perform pretty much the same, and even if they might not for one reason or another, I still think it'd be interesting to see what kind of the older mini mags might be able to do. Now for the setup I've brought out here today, it is this guy. This is my Marlin Glenfield Model 25, and up on top here is just a little Bushnell sharpshooter 3-9x32 scope. Definitely nothing super impressive, but it works for what this gun is capable of doing. And speaking of what this is capable of, we know that this is a 50-yard setup. So that's where we're going to keep it today, just like we've always done with this setup. So speaking of the test, it's going to be the same as we kind of usually do with these 22s. I'm going to have a target set up at 50 yards and I'm going to shoot 5 groups. The groups are going to be 3 shots each. I do also have the chronograph out here, so we'll be able to see what kind of speed we're going and get an average velocity and some energy numbers. And as always, I will let the barrel cool down in the shade for a few minutes in between each group. And then after we test everything, we'll look at our chrono numbers and then we'll head up and take a look at our target. And I do have my digital calipers out here and we'll measure our groups and see how this stuff actually performed. So let's head over here and shoot them and see what we might actually be able to get. Alright, so let's take a look here at our chronograph numbers. Now, I will say that there were 2 or 3 shots that were noticeably lower and weaker than the rest. So that's going to actually be factored into what the chronograph calculates here. So that was definitely pretty interesting, seeing that we had a few that were definitely a little bit on the weak side. But let's go through the actual numbers here and just see what that string of shots gave us. So for a high, it gave us 1274. For a low, it gave us 899, which was one of those really low shots. And for an average, it gave us 1206. So if it was claiming 1200 feet per second or so, or 1250, then we're in the ballpark. But a couple of those low numbers in there definitely lowered our average by quite a bit. But how did they do for accuracy? Let's head up to the bench here and measure it and see if they're accurate or not. Alright, so now we're looking at our target here, and this is pretty interesting. We definitely saw the same inconsistencies in accuracy that directly correlated to the low velocities, which definitely makes sense. But let's start out with measuring that top left group, which was the first group, and see what that gave us, because clearly that's one of the worst ones out of the bunch. Okay, so that first group in the top left gave us a 3.29 inch group. Our first 2 shots up here were relatively okay. Not anything amazing, but they looked halfway decent. But this one down here was definitely a lower velocity than what these 2 were. So we clearly saw a little bit of deviation in our point of impact there. So not at all the best group out of that guy. So let's measure our second group, which I believe was the bottom left one, which is clearly much better. So let's measure that one and see what we're looking at there. Okay, so that second group down in the bottom left gave us a 0.78 inch group. So you're looking at right at a 3/4 inch group. Not anything super stellar for only being 50 yards, but definitely not the worst we've seen either. So in the context of what we have here today, it's not terrible, but let's go up to that top right group up there and see what that one gave us, because that's clearly the worst group of the day. And we had another case of where we had two up here that were relatively kind of decent. And then this little bullet hole right over here was the third bullet hole out of this group. So clearly that one was way off compared to the other two. But let's measure it and see what it actually gave us here. Alright, so that group gave us a 5.14 inch group. There's no doubt that that is by far the worst group of the day, and I believe the worst group that we have seen out of this rifle. So definitely you're looking at some inconsistencies in these particular rounds. Now, do I think that's the CCI mini mags as a whole? No. I think it's just this box of ammo being a little bit older. We're just seeing some inconsistency in it. But let's move down to the bottom right corner group and see what that one gave us. Clearly, that one's not anything amazing either, but let's measure it and see. Okay, so that bottom right group gave us a 3.33 inch group, so definitely better than the top right group, but still at 50 yards, that's not anything super amazing. So yet again, same inconsistencies are playing in here. So let's finish up here with our final group in the middle and see what that one gave us, because that one wasn't too terrible. Okay, so our last group gave us a 0.91 inch group there. So not terrible, but not the best group of the day either. That bottom left group was still better. So I think that is on kind of the lower end of average for what this rifle can give us. And like I've said already, inconsistencies and probably old ammunition definitely played into this one, but I still wanted to test it anyway to see what it could do. And these are the results it gave us for today. Not anything amazing, that's for sure. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about this test? It was definitely a factor of some older ammunition in this one, I do believe. I think we should definitely run some new CCI mini mag stuff through it and see what we get out of that, because I think it can definitely be a whole lot better. But what do you guys think about it? Let me know. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments about the test today and where we should go from here and what all else you would like to see tested. But with that being said, I'm going to jump back to it. As always, we do have an Instagram if you would like to go over there and take a look at it. The link will be in the description. I do post updates and a few sneak peeks and stuff like that over there, so if you would like, then feel free to go over there. But with that being said, I'm going to jump back to it. I've got a bunch more testing and hunting coming y'all's way here real soon, so stay tuned for that, and I'll see y'all in the next one.